Welcome to the High Performance Interviews. And today I am joined by a wonderful lady, Anne Marie, and she is from America and she's in Maryland. She is 25 years an educator. She has also become a facilitator and coach. She has her own podcast, which is called About This Life, and is the founder of Becoming Enough Community, which you're going to hear more about as we go through. So, Anne Marie, tell us more about the things that you have done to transition from being an educator into all that you're doing at the moment and all you're bringing to the world. What's that pivot moment for you?
That pivot moment. Thank you. Good morning, Lucy, and thank you for having me on as a guest. It's been a ride and it's been wonderful to be here. So, one of the things that I think about who am I and what do I stand for is I realize I've been going into new spaces and new adventures, new chapters in a book frequently. It's just that I never thought about it like that. But now that I framed it that way, I said, "Oh my, I've been coaching, facilitating for all of those many, many, many years." And so transitioning from what I do every single day into this world, it has been amazing in terms of bringing the skill set with me that I already have established and excelled with, and just layering it on with a whole new lot of terminology and vocabulary, and to be able to be successful at that. So it's a transition of things that I've already done. It's just reframing it and renaming it.
So was it more of an aha moment? This is what I do and I can make this transition. Was that kind of the pivot point when you got among different people? What would you say that that's what it was, Anne Marie?
The pivot point, the aha moment comes later.
Ah,
Okay, aha, this makes a difference. The what comes first is the why. Why am I doing this?
mm,
And there is some consistency and also some change, because the consistent pattern is when you are an educator, you want to help people. You want people to grow. You want people to learn. You want people to evolve and tackle new things in their life. Same is true for coaching and facilitating, but now you're working with different audiences. So I want the same thing, but there's a difference. And I'll tell you what I mean. When you are talking with a child about any issue, and regardless of the issue, you're going to phrase it, you're going to frame it, you're going to talk about it with a child differently than you would, say, an adult. And so that is the difference of moving from one place to another,
mm.
actually.
Beautifully said. I love that. I really do love that. Okay. And so, what do you feel in your life has taken you to that high level, Anne Marie? Is it that really big reason why that purpose of helping people to become more, to become better, to get further educated, to fill them up? Do you feel that that is the thing, or is there something else alongside that, or quite different than that for you?
It's a combination of so many things, Lucy, because at some point you get to be a big fish in a small pond. And when you are a big fish in a small pond, you've outgrown your situation, you've outgrown where you are. It has nurtured you, it has loved you, it has given you plenty of space for you to be your authentic self. But then it comes a point where it's almost like you need to go to a different space where you become the little fish once again. And in as being the little fish, you have the opportunity to absorb and to grow and learn how to master your craft. And that, after all, life is about change.
Hmm.
Life is about change because if you're stagnant, if you're not developing in some form of fashion, you're just eking through an existence. And I find many people, you get up in the morning, some of us have our coffee or our tea, you go to work, you put in your hours, you come home, and you might sit on the couch, watch TV, or do any of those things. And then you repeat the next day, and a lot of people live their lives waiting for Friday. And I'm saying, I don't want to live my life that way. I don't want to wait for Friday. And some of the things that you do after many, many years of working in the same area is, in some form of fashion, it becomes autopilot. It becomes automatic. When something comes automatic, it tends to stop the flow of creativity and innovation. So that's why it's so important to become a little fish in a big pond every now and then, to go out of our comfort zones.
And that's what you're doing and have done. And so the reason behind that internally is to keep on growing by the sounds of it. It's like once I've become this big fish in the pond that I was once a small fish, I now need to jump into the next pond where I'm the small fish again and to grow to become the big fish there. That sounds to me like what you've done and what you're in the middle of doing, and you're growing as that small fish into a medium-sized fish, and you're going to become that huge fish or however big you want to grow, right, in that pond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that experience benefits many people because it's time to go to a place where it's the space where creativity flows.
Mm.
Because when you're small, there's nothing to do but to grow. So it opens up a different level of creativity and what you want to do.
And I know from knowing you for a while that you're a very creative person and that you have a club around poetry, Poetic Voices. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Anne-Marie, and what you bring to that and what comes from that for you?
Absolutely. I do want to talk about that. And yes, it's been my pleasure to know you for a while, Lucy, and to have these types of conversations with you. Poetic voices. One of the things as an educator that I would do is, we're always complaining. We're always talking about how tough the job is. And there's a certain level of difficulty that exists when you're trying to facilitate uh, critical thinking among youth. And they have their own personalities, and they don't always want to follow directions because I think it goes with the territory. I'm a young person, so I'm not going to listen to you, right? So when you're teaching a subject such as reading or English language arts, when you're teaching a subject and you run into a young person who they rather be in PE or they rather be in music, it's a little challenging to say and come into the room and say, okay, today you're going to write an essay. And so my focus has always been, how do I engage students? How
Mm.
do I engage the kids? I engage the kids by creating an experience for them so that they can wrap themselves around it. Poetic Voices came by accident because one of the many hats I wear, I'm an arts integration master teacher. So I bring in music, I bring in drama, dance, visual art, media arts to teach the kids. In so doing, in teaching the kids poetry, a beautiful thing evolved. They went into the core of their hearts. They went into the core of their experiences. I'll give you a quick example, Lucy, that every year they have performances and they perform live, spoken word contests and competitions. And two of my students, young ladies, they came to me and they said, we have a poem we want to do as a duet. And the poem, they're going back and forth and they're talking about beauty and how you style your hair and how you style your clothes and what you're wearing, what your vibe is. And so it pulls the audience in, and you're just like, yes, I affirm you. And then they transition into hard hitting issues like rape and incest. And so they talk about those issues, but how they came into it was to talk about the beauty of a woman, of being a girl. Poetry. Poetry. And so when I look at what young people can do, one of the things that I'm doing as well is bringing that message to adults that there is, you can find your voice
Mm.
by the things that you write. You can find your voice. And I know in terms of journaling, when we journal, we are like doing a brain dump and we're dumping things into what we write, into our journals, our diaries, and our reflections. Poetry is the art of using words precisely, specifically, and with intentionality.
Mm.
So that it's almost like a lyrical quality to it.
Yeah. Oh, that is so wonderful. And listening to those girls must have just been
Yes.
absolutely, I bet you could hear a pin drop when they were doing that.
Yes. 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 And the same is true for adults in walking adults through it. And it just opens up. And I never knew the power. So it's really spoken word. It's
Hmm.
the spoken word that taps into your heart, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like it was coming from such a real space from them, but facilitated
Yes.
and allowed to be opened up through what you were doing. And that sounds just so wonderful, bringing all of the arts and the music and the poetry and
Mhm.
everything together. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It definitely is, because if you think about your life experience, if you think about your teenage years, or you think about your 20s and 30s, and for some of us, we're a little past that. But you think of all those years, there's usually a song, there's usually a soundtrack that can go and connect with a moment, a special moment that we have experienced. So the arts create memory.
Mm.
It lends itself to that. And so the experience with the girls, can you imagine the experience with adults in terms of we bury things deep in us. We bury and we wear a mask and we present ourselves to the world because we have to in order to navigate that space. Spoken word doesn't lie. Poetry doesn't lie. It is what comes out right here from your heart.
Yeah. And very, very healing. And all of those things are so, whether you're drawing, if you're writing something like poetry or even journaling, when you are
Yes.
dancing, when you're singing, when you're playing music. I mean, I'm a dancer, so I totally get all that,
Yes.
right? So
Cool beans.
cool beans indeed.
Cool beans, yes.
So that is absolutely phenomenal. And then when you're moving into the more of the facilitation and the coaching side, Anne-Marie, is that what you're bringing to people? Is it going to be the spoken word and poetry? Tell us more about what that transition is into.
That trends into, you're exactly correct, because I am working on writing my own book of poetry, actually, and having that published. It also transitions into, as I mentioned before, in terms of finding your voice. But there, I have a fan crush. Can I tell you about my fan crush,
Go
please?
do it. Yeah.
Let me tell you about my fan crush. I have a fan crush, and it is Dr. Tama Bryant. And Dr. Tama Bryant, psychologist, therapist, minister, and had the privilege of meeting her in person, prophet, healer, and all of the wondrous things that she does. And she's written two books. One is Homecoming, and one is Matters of the Heart. And she talks about the disassociation of ourselves. That's how we live our lives less authentically because we are fitting ourselves into somebody else's construct. In simple terms, what that means is we are people pleasers. And if we're not people pleasers, we are living in imposter syndrome when we are disassociated from ourselves. So I feel that the spoken word is a gateway into a healing space where people can find their voice, find their authenticity once again, not the face that is masked, but
Mm.
who they truly or are at the core. And so that is the area that I am leading into because there will be books, there will be speeches and speaking platforms, as well as retreats. 1 or 2 years from now, I imagine pulling my group, becoming enough together, and us having a retreat.
I can see it happening already.
Absolutely, absolutely. From your lips to God's ears, right?
And the power
Absolutely.
of the imagination as well. I mean, if you see it and you believe it, it's going to happen. So,
You can achieve it. That's what I tell a lot of people. If you can conceive it, all you have to do is believe it and you will achieve it.
yeah, it will come. It
Yes.
definitely will come. And so, with the people that you're hoping to reach, and you are reaching, because I'm sure there'll be some people that are listening into this and thinking,
Yes.
that kind of sounds like me, maybe possibly. Do you think that there are some people out there that don't even recognize because they've been wearing this mask for so long, they don't actually recognize some people that they're wearing a mask?
They don't recognize, there are some people who don't recognize, and there are some people who do, and we call it code switching in our community. But let me address the ones who don't recognize first, because it speaks to that line between career and personal life. Because the construct that we live in, the mindset, oftentimes is in this box, I'm going to achieve this. In this box, this is where I want to be 5 to 10 years. In this box. So we have a box for career, we have a box for relationships, we have a box for family. And for many, many years, that's how I lived my own life. Okay. And first of all, the myth we have to destroy is that when we reach a certain level, all our problems go away. No such thing. And I was naive enough to believe that. And when you're young, you don't know any better, right? Like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. So I said, okay, this isn't working, but it wasn't holistic. And by holistic, I mean, it's not necessarily what you accomplish in each box. It has to do with who are you? Who do you show up as in each way? So Anne Marie is an honest person. I'm going to be honest in my career as well as in my personal life. So there's consistency. I am an honest person, or Anne Marie believes in doing things with a degree of excellence to my capability. So whether I'm talking about working through family issues or any of the personal things or career things that I aspire to, it I learned to hang on to the core, and it's the core that brings about the holistic perspective. I dare say a lot of people don't know their core
Mm.
because they've been living with masks for so long. Now, to the ones who do, to the ones who are listening, and I mentioned this word code switching, you know, I could be one way here, and then, okay, I'm going to put on my cap and I'm going outside and I'm dancing, right? So we show up different ways in front of different audiences, and we do that cognitively. The question is why?
Mm.
And we do it cognitively because it is a protective mechanism. So I'm talking to women who look like me. I call them black and brown women, black and brown people, in terms of when we are true to ourselves, when we live our lives, we are often either watched, observed, judged, put into a box of what somebody else thinks of us. And so, as a protective mechanism, we've learned how to show up in a business place, in a marketplace with a mask on. We're still knowledgeable about who we are, but we understand we have to protect ourselves as well. And so, my coaching, my facilitating is how do we create this safe space where we can gather, where we can be true, and we can be true regardless of where we are. I want to be true regardless of where I am. If you want to know something about Anne Marie likes to dance regardless of where I am. No shame. So we throwing off shame, we throwing off judgment. Somebody else can project their beliefs onto us, and we're saying, no, that's your belief. That's not me. And that's not an easy thing to do.
No, but it's a very powerful thing to do.
Yes. That's not an easy thing to do. And it goes back to Dr. Tama Bryant's message about disassociation. When you come back to yourself, it speaks to how do you get away from people pleasing? And it speaks to I am going to show up as myself. And the other point that I want to add to that, it's a generational thing because the younger generation are much more freer than my generation was ever allowed to be.
Mm.
Um, in terms of the way that we were raised. So in some regards, it's what I call breaking generational curses. You know, we have generational curses, but we have generational blessings as well. So let's do more of the blessing side and less of the curse. We want to get rid of the curses and bring on the blessings, blessings like resiliency, blessings like strength, blessings like community, and so on and so forth.
And communication, right? And understanding and
Yes,
respect. I think that's a big one as well.
yes.
We were really
So
taught
those are the blessings.
respect. Yeah, they're the blessings for sure. And I think you were talking about when you were going into your core, it's like your core values, what you stand for, and standing in that space of this is what I stand for. I don't need to show up in a different way over there because that's not quite my value. I'm going to stand in my
Yes.
value when I go into that space.
I love how you mirror me. Thank you, Lucy.
You're welcome.
You say it so concisely. I'm like, yeah, all those words, you said it. And a few short sentences.
Oh, that's fine. And I love it because when we can really show up as ourselves, and it takes courage, right? It takes courage to
Yes.
show up as ourselves. And it can be stepping into it. It's always when you step into that courage and you step across the line that we create of fear and you step the other side of fear and you take a deep breath and you say or you behave how you want to say and behave in that situation with love, with kindness, with
Yes.
all of yourself, that just feels good. Although it might feel a bit scary, it feels really good after you've done it. And you get the respect that you deserve because you've respected how you feel yourself. You've respected yourself, right? Your inner being.
Absolutely. And it's almost like you're coming home to yourself.
Yeah.
You're coming home to yourself.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
heart. The heart.
We're here. We're right here. Beautiful. So, Anne Marie, if somebody would like to get in touch with you and to become enough themselves and feel like they are becoming enough, because everybody is, but they don't all feel like they're enough at this point in time, and they want a touch point with you, where can they find out more? Because we're going to put all the descriptions down below, but share that here as well.
Okay. Definitely. There are two things, maybe three. In the online group Becoming Enough, online on Facebook, it is a space that's being created, and it's a sacred space for women to connect with one another, to share their stories with one another. And then we do events in that space once a month. And sometimes it's like a hot seat situation where other people just can come on and share what it is they're doing, as well as bringing on guest speakers. So, this month I will have Dr. Mona Ali on with me, for example, and we'll be talking about these messages of hope amidst there's a lot of turmoil in the US and in our country right now. So it's that type of space. I'm on Facebook, Becoming Enough. I would love, 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 love if everyone will come and subscribe to my podcast about this life podcast. And you have to include podcasts into it. So they can find me on YouTube at aboutthislifepodcast.com. It also streams, and Podbean being the major streamer, but it comes on Apple, Spotify, and so on and so forth. So it's aboutthislife.podbean.com. And one more thing is I have been contacted, and I am so, so, so excited about collaborating with a woman named Cami Red. And Cami Red heads up a brand that's called Dear Black Woman. I am authoring a chapter of her book of the same title, Dear Black Woman. It will it will rock your world, and it will rock your world because there are 20 chapters in the book, and each chapter is being written by a different woman. And so I am privileged to be able to write that. So stay tuned.
Fantastic. And is that coming out in the summer of 2025, or is that later date on that?
It's projected to come out around September, October, but we are getting our final copies in now. There's the press that we are doing around it to generate a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz. I will be talking about it more in terms of my group Becoming Enough. On my podcast, I actually did an interview with Cami, so she talks about it and talks about her brand. So if people want to find out more about it, they can go to one of those two places.
Fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. I have absolutely loved hearing all of this, Anne Marie. It's been so wonderful having you
Yes.
here today. Is
Thank you so much for having me, Lucy.
You are most welcome. Is there anything else that you would like one or two little snippets you would like to leave the audience with to go away and just to keep on thinking on?
Here's what I want the audience to keep on thinking about. The idea of rest. Rest sometimes is used as a dirty word because if you're resting, oh, you're not doing anything. If you're resting, somebody else is going to beat you and get ahead of you. And I'm here to say, if God has it for you, it will be there for you. And we need to give ourselves permission. No one else needs to give it to us. We need to give ourselves permission to rest, rest our mind, rest our bodies, so that our nervous system can recuperate, so that creativity can flow through us, and so we can show up another day.
Yeah, beautifully put. Rest is definitely part of the work.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, most definitely. Oh, that's awesome. What a great note to finish on. And thank you again. Thank you to our audience for listening in. There'll be another video coming up on screen, so I'll see you over there. Have the most awesome day. Bye for now.